Well, hello there, motherfuckers. And I've been trying to get around to doing a review of Rocko's Modern Life, Static Cling, which has been on Netflix since August 9th, I believe. So this has always been one of my favorite childhood shows. Definitely in the top 5 when it comes to Nickelodeon shows. Hey Arnold, Rugrats, Doug, Our Real Monsters. If I had to really choose, Rocko would probably be in there. Maybe I'll do that list one day. Maybe I'll do a top 10 Nick Toons. But Nick Toons during the 90s means so much to me in my childhood. To see Rocko come back for one last hurrah was a real treat. Now, Joe Murray, the original writer and director and producer for this show, actually returned for this, I guess you could call it is a movie, but it's a movie where I actually like it. It's actually just a little bit more, double the length of a regular Rocko episode. And it's 45 minutes in total. It doesn't overstay its welcome. Every moment in this cartoon movie, they take advantage of every moment they have. And I was very pleased with the final product. Now, Nickelodeon has been mismanaging the channel for God knows how long. They banked everything on SpongeBob SquarePants, and, maybe I'll also do another rant on that one day, but I don't like that show. I have not liked that show since it debuted in the early 90s. I remember it was like right after the Kids' Choice Awards. They made a whole big deal. There was a lot of fanfare around it. And to be honest, it probably ended up becoming twice as popular as Rocko's Modern Life. And, and I'm cringing to say this, but it is definitely more popular than Rugrats. It had more movies, it's had more attention, it's been on the air longer. It doesn't matter, we could sit around all day and talk about quality, but that show reigns supreme when it comes to cartoons, whether we like it or not. So, in a world of SpongeBob's and a bunch of cartoons that have been CGI'd to hell, it's a real treat that we actually, for once, get a hand-drawn cartoon in the way of Rocko's Modern Life. And the funny thing is they actually poke fun at CGI cartoons in this Rocko feature. And so here, let's talk a little bit about the story. So we come upon Rocko and his friends Heifer and Sheldon, and they're rocketing across the universe. They can't get out of orbit because they have a rocket stuck in Rocko's house. So for the last 20 years, they made it like they've been in outer space. And where has the remote control been all this time? It's been up Heifer's butt, literally. On it, to be accurate. And all this time, they've been in Rocko's house, and they've been watching Rocko's favorite cartoon, the Fatheads, on VHS. So the tape gets destroyed, but, lucky for them, they're headed back to Earth. So they re-enter Earth, they return to O-Town, which is Rocko's hometown, and in some weird turn of events, in Rocko's absence, his neighbor, Ed Bighead, who's the frog with the big head, who Rocko had inadvertently tortured, pretty much his whole existence. He's gotten the big promotion in Rocko's absence. His life is finally turned around, and he's actually become a very important figure at his company, Conglommo, which is also the same company that produces the Fatheads. And it's Ed Bighead's son Ralph who actually produces that cartoon. So it's funny how there's a cartoon in the cartoon. I always liked when they did that on shows. It kind of gave it life, it gave it personality. And so Rocko's rocket that's attached to his house goes whizzing by, and it causes another inadvertent accident, and it causes an accounting error. So you have Ed submitting a financial report, and it reads 0-0. And for some reason, like in cartoon land, this somehow bankrupts the company, and it's a disaster. And Ed gets fired. Lo and behold, he realized that Rocko has returned to Earth. And the funny thing is, before Ed becomes aware of Rocko's presence back on Earth, we find out that things have changed in O-Town. Rocko's world kind of looks a little bit like ours. There's a Starbucks, well, I think they call it Moonbucks. There's a lot of little jabs at pop culture and different stores and restaurants. They show energy drinks that are mutating people, making them grow limbs. It's entertaining, and right away, at this point, you already know you're back in the Rocko universe. Things feel right. It feels like the cartoon we all remember from the 90s. But, now it's just taking place in 2019. And so he becomes aware that not only is Ed lost his job, but his favorite cartoon is off the air, the Fatheads, and it's been off the air for quite some time. But Rocko, he begs, to get his son, Ralph, to come back and do the cartoon, but, Ed doesn't know where he is. And so Rocko sets off to find him. So, he promises Ed that he's going to get his job back, because bringing back the cartoon can, possibly get Ed's job back. So they go and they appeal to Ed's boss. Rocko promises that he's going to find Ralph and get him back to the cartoon. But in the meantime, they're going to hire some writers. There is some cartoonists, they say, that are going to, bring back the Fatheads. Since it looks like Rocko, won't be able to find Ralph. And it ends up being the two lizards, the two twin lizards, and they end up making a CGI cartoon, and it's absolutely terrible. And it's funny because it's like showing like how so many things have been CGI'd, and how many people have disdain for that, including myself, where they've brought back properties. It's going on in Disney right now. It's totally out of control. To see them poke fun at that here, that just warmed my heart. And I found it really particularly funny, because that's probably the most humorous type of material you could have, the ones that hit so close to home, and you got to see that right there. So but Rocko's not going to be deterred. He goes into the desert. He finds Ralph. He's driving an ice cream truck, and he's selling Fathead popsicles. And then they find out, and this is probably the most controversial thing, which I didn't even know what to think about this when I read about the controversy. So he finds Ed Bighead's son, Ralph, the cartoonist, the creator of the Fatheads, and he pleads with him to come back to save his dad's job and bring back his favorite cartoon. And I love through all this, like, Rocko's really doing it for selfish reasons. He couldn't care less about Ed's job. He just wants his favorite cartoon back, and he's counting on Ralph to give it back to him. So he manages to convince Ralph. At first, he doesn't want to do it, but he ends up doing it for his dad. But first we learn that, well, Ralph had, quote-unquote, gone off to find himself. He comes out of the ice cream truck, and you kind of see the foreshadowing, because you kind of see he has eyelashes. Comes out, he's wearing high heels, he's wearing a dress, he's grown his hair out. He has changed into a woman, and now he's no longer Ralph, he's Rachel. And, people that ponder this, like, did they need to do this? Was this like something necessary to change the sex of the character? I have to say that, like, I was a bit perplexed. I feel like they kind of just wanted to put it in there just to be relevant, to make it feel like 2019. It in no way felt like they were being too heavy-handed about it. I mean, because when I think about it, they could have went all out with this, and they could have like made this part of the story. And it is integrated in the story because Ralph is a key element in the story. So Rocko brings Ralph to Ed, to his father, and he's all ready to do the cartoon. He's ready to save his dad's job, but Ed won't accept Ralph this way. He won't accept Rachel. They show that Rocko, Sheldon, and Heifer, they're all very accepting of this. But, Ed being the father, of course, and that was a realistic reaction. That's something you could expect. And I have to say that they probably might have even taken a chance with honestly, like, doing that in the cartoon. Like, they could have said, like, oh, that's pretty offensive how Ed doesn't want to accept them right away. So they made it realistic. They put it in there. They took a chance. But, like I said, I don't think it oversteps any boundaries. I don't think it comes off very heavy-handed. Did it need to be there? Probably not, to avoid upsetting people and controversy. Like, there's no reason to do that. But, once again, I gotta say, it's Joe Murray's cartoon. He could do what he wants. So I'm sorry, I have to, play devil's advocate here and say that there's no reason why Joe Murray can't do this, just because some people disagree with this lifestyle. If they want to put it in there, that's what it is. Does it upset a lot of people? Does it really need to be in there? Like, the thing is, I mean, if he just brings Ralph back, there needed to be some sort of conflict. Now, they could have went with that they just disagree with each other. But it is, when I thought about it, an interesting element. And I like actually how the story went. And I did like that, since this is something that is going on and it's pretty prevalent in 2019, it makes the cartoon feel very timely and it doesn't make it feel dated. And it's a way of showing that, like, a lot has changed since the 90s. Since, we came home from school and watched, cartoons and ate Lunchables and all this. Things have drastically changed in the world. And so, Joe Murray realizes this and he delivers this in the cartoon. And I think that he was in the right for doing this. So I thoroughly, analyzed how I thought about this. And I thought about my initial reaction. I'm okay with this. This makes sense for it being in there because it is 2019. It would have been different if if they did this back in, 96. I mean, it would have caused more of a stir, more of a shock, I think, than anything. And it would have been more out of place. But with this sort of lifestyle choice being more and more accepted and it being out there, it makes total sense in the context of the show. So, would I ever think that they would have added that in there? Probably not. But they decided to do that, and they did it in a tasteful way where I don't think they stepped on too many toes. But anyway, so he doesn't accept it. So Ralph gets upset. He says he can't work like this. Then he kind of thinks back to a moment with his dad when he was really young, when he was still a baby. And, he kind of realizes that, his dad's very important to him. So he goes back to him. He ends up writing a new cartoon, and there's a big premiere and everything. And just like this, it's like a Fatheads special. It's not just like the show getting back on the air. And I like that how, once again, it was an idea within an idea. A cartoon movie bringing back Rocko's Modern Life, the show, and then so Rocko's favorite cartoon, the Fatheads, is brought back in the feature that there had the Rocko special. So I like that, especially within the special. It was clever how Joe Murray kind of wrote that and into the show, and Rocko doesn't like it. And this is not the Rocko. This is not, well, I'm jumping ahead there. There was an idea I had there. But Rocko's reaction is, this is not the Fatheads, because they write in that there's a baby character, there's a baby Fathead, and Rocko doesn't like that. But everyone else around him loves the special. And they show there's a lot of kids that enjoy it and everything. And this is a very interesting thing here. And then, Ed enjoys it too, probably because his son worked on it. And, he says, Rocko, times change and everything. And Rocko kind of, accepts that. He understands that ideology. So that was actually a clever way to end it in a way. So, you know, we have to think about this. You know, I tried to, and I had mixed feelings about it. So what Joe Murray is trying to say here, basically, and this is why I like this, because there was a lot of different ideas going on here they played around with. There's probably people who are going to watch this Rocko special and they're going to say, this is not the Rocko I remember. You know, they're doing transgendered storylines. You know, Ralph, they changed the character totally. They're doing different references. Some people, I'm sure, probably wanted this show to be exactly as it was in the 90s. I think for the most part, it is. The type of humor I vividly remember. It's the same type of humor. And that's a very good thing. They drew the cartoon the same way. Maybe this looks a bit more defined, but not by much. So they stayed true to the art style. They stayed true to the same storytelling. They did numerous little sexual innuendo jokes with the big heads. You know, Mr. and Mrs. Bighead are like, you know, you see the innuendos just like they used to back in the day. There's a whole bunch of physical ones and verbal ones, and probably more than there was, but they probably multiply because they know that a lot of people, thanks to the internet, have had caught on to that. Joe Murray is aware of that. So, you know, what did he do? He kind of, you know, amplified it, not where it's overboard, but he definitely added more innuendos into the special. But back to this end message here, you know, people are going to watch the show, and it's not going to be the way they remember. They might have false memories about it. They may have more vivid memories. They might have liked how the past episodes were. They might find it superior to this special, and I'm sure that's a thing. But, you know, he's saying, like, there's also going to be kids coming upon this special for the first time who've never seen Rocko before, or they might have an older brother and sister or a parent that is showing them the show for the first time. So they may experience it and, you know, think about it in a different way and maybe appreciate it more than ways that they could. And that's the same thing, and I've seen it time and time again. Like, for me, the new Ninja Turtles cartoon that came out on Nickelodeon, I wasn't crazy about the 2012 one. This new one came out, Rise of the TMNT. It looks awful. It is awful. It's really bad, but people like it, and I'm sure a lot of young kids enjoy it. But that to me is not the Turtles. Just as with Rocko, that's not the Fatheads. You know, and I said the same thing in 2012 with the Turtles CGI. This is CGI. Well, that's the thing. That cartoon was still hand-drawn when Ralph did it. But I still like that Joe Murray's saying, well, CGI in cartoons is just not my thing. So I'm just going to, give that a bad rap. And I totally agree with Joe Murray. Get that garbo out of cartoons. They've totally overdone the CGI thing. It was godly when they did it in Toy Story and a few others, but they've gone way overboard. They've gotten really lazy. Oh, let's just do everything on a computer now. And I like how they make fun of that. They bring in their, super, exaggerated computers, and they make, it's so simple to make a cartoon now. You could basically just feed ideas into a computer and it will pop out a successful cartoon. And they show that doesn't work when the two lizards try to do it. But they do say, with new shows, they're gonna change it up every now and again for new audiences, and original fans who watched it since day one may not agree with it. So that was a really interesting way of looking at things. I, for the most part, fall into that camp. Usually when something is brought back or changed, I usually don't end up liking it. Case in point, once again, the Ninja Turtles, all the Disney remakes. But, most of them are CGI anyway, so, but that was a lot of fun. That was a great special brought to us by Joe Murray. Nickelodeon is totally nuts for keeping that under wraps for about a year. That's the funny thing. Static Cling had been done. It had been finished. They drew it up. It had already been produced and fully animated. I think way back in July 2018, and it was supposed to debut on Nickelodeon, but they held it under wraps. They did absolutely nothing with it. Joe Murray, just like Ralph, kills himself to make a fully animated special, once again reviving an old franchise. And it's not like Nickelodeon has like 1,001 successful shows. I was just watching a YouTube video on it. I think Saber Spark, which is another, I think that's the guy's name here on YouTube. He's does some pretty good specials. Did a whole thing on Nickelodeon and how they relied too much on SpongeBob, and that was really good. I learned a lot because I hadn't watched Nickelodeon so long, because all the shows are just unappealing to me. And like I said, I might have a different opinion if I was a different age group and I was born, several generations later, but that's not the case. But anyway, guys, this works as a Netflix special. It's great. If you're a fan of Rocko, if you're a fan of Nick Toons, you will probably enjoy it. So I would say go watch it. I don't think you'll be disappointed. Maybe just like Rocko at the end of the feature, slightly disappointed. Doesn't really, want it to be that way. There might be certain parts that you disagree with in this special, but I think for the most part that you will enjoy it. So anyway, guys, I hope you all enjoyed the review and the video. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Click the bell so you get notifications when I post all my new videos. And guys, once again, I'm going to plug the Twitch channel. Go subscribe to me. Well, you can if you want to. You can subscribe, but more times than not, it would be a follow over on Twitch. Twitch.tv/TheBradRulesLive, and go watch my live streams over there. Anyway, guys, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.